Hey, travel friends. I'm not sure how many people were able to join today, but I've been talking about doing these lives for a while. I did two lives last year for those of you who were able to attend those last fall. And they called them Travel Talk Thursday. And they were a lot of fun. And I wanted to continue those when I was on my round the world trip, but things got so crazy on that trip and it just didn't work out. So then you get out of the habit of doing these kinds of things. And so it's just been difficult to get this started back up again. So I see that I have three people here. That's awesome. So if you want, if you feel so inclined, you could drop in the chat and just introduce yourself if you want, or just say where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see where people are signing in from. So, oh, yay, Wendy. I'm so excited. Okay. So anyway, so today I just wanted to I'll try to check in with the chat every once in a while. Oh, Karen from Canada. Hello. So yeah, anyway, I'll just go kind of back and forth because this is live, but it's also I wanted to have something to talk about. First of all, I wanted to talk about why I kind of changed the name. So the name last year was Travel Talk Thursday, and we're still doing it on Thursdays as of now, unless we decide that we want to change it to a different day. If there's a better day and time for everybody, we can be flexible with this. But I decided to start calling it a travel club, and this is the reason for that is because I'll just share a story that I thought was really cool. Oh, hello from Missouri, Kate, Carla. Yeah, Carla and Wendy, you're from Colorado. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to share a story of when I was on my round the world trip last fall. I was in Uzbekistan and I was actually on the Silk Road on a train going from, I think I was going from Samarkand to Bukhara. Not like that matters, but it kind of just gives a little bit of context of place. So I'm on the train and I meet there's a whole bunch of other travelers obviously on the train, but because it was the high speed train and most of the time that's foreigners that are on those trains. So I meet a bunch of ladies who said that they were from Moscow and they were all there because they were part of a club in Moscow. And so she was talking to me about these clubs and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And she's like, do you not really have clubs in America? And I was like, we actually don't really have that many clubs. They're not like that big of a deal. And she was like, oh, they're huge in Moscow. Like we're all members of like all these different kinds of clubs. And she says, because like, first it was the pandemic, then of course the war. And so it kind of left them feeling very isolated and alone. And so they decided to like they just started these clubs and these different kinds of clubs there, which I just thought was a really cool thing. So we're there because they were part of a ladies club. There's all different kinds of clubs, but the club they were part of for this, so it was an art. They were there because there was a biennial going on in Bukhara, so they were there to see a lot of the exhibits and stuff. So anyway, I just thought that was so cool, and it just kind of stuck in my mind. I was like, that would be so fun to call this more like a club. So it'd be because she was explaining, yeah, that we meet like every week, and like sometimes we'll have guest speakers, and sometimes we'll do just different things, and we'll have refreshments. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that'd be so fun to do something similar with this. I would have liked to eventually I'll have to get like different streaming software in order to invite different guests on because right now I'm just using the YouTube live format. But anyway, it would be so fun to have like guest speakers on different topics that we could bring in and then we can ask them questions, presentation or something. I just think it'd be really fun. So anyway, that's why I decided to change it to the travel club. So that is a little bit of an explanation on the name change. I just thought that story was so cool. I loved meeting those ladies. They were just so nice. And then I wanted to, I guess you guys can hear me because you are also writing that. I was going to say at the very beginning, I was doing a mic check, but I don't need to do that. Anyway, so for this club, like I said, I want to do eventually guest speakers and stuff, but I want to do it on like different topics every single week. Those can be like, you guys can help like give suggestions on things that you'd like to talk about for the travel club. But really anything goes as far as it's like related to travel. There's so many different cool things that we could talk about. And what's neat about it is that you guys can ask questions and I can answer them based on whatever I know, but then we can also talk with each other in the chat. So you guys can talk with each other while I'm answering a question or whatever. That's the ideal, is that we can all just like communicate with each other and feel like we're part of a community. So that's kind of the point of what I wanted to do with this club. So that out of the way, I wanted to go on now and just kind of talk about today's topic. And it's actually something that I've been thinking about for quite some time. And it kind of ties in with some of the videos that I've done recently. As you notice, I've done some things on like DIY on the fly or like DIY kits, things like that, trying to help give like little things that we can start thinking about resourcefulness when we travel. Because I mean, I'm a solo travel, but larger than that, I'm an independent traveler. And so, and what I mean by independent traveler is that I make all of my own travel arrangements. I don't rely on like, signing up for a tour or anything like that. Not like that's bad. I'm not saying that's a bad way to travel. It's fantastic. But I like putting everything together myself. And I like doing it most of the time, like kind of on the go. And so, because of that, when I run into problems when I'm traveling, I have to solve them. Like no one else is going to be there to help me solve those. So anyway, I so I have so I've been thinking a lot about resourcefulness when you travel. Like, how can you become more resourceful? And I had like something that I wrote down. There's lots of different things that you can experience when you travel that are the unexpected, right? Like, you can't necessarily plan for every single scenario, but what you can do is you can learn from other travelers in advance, like which is what we're going to be doing here. And then also just using your own common sense and some general principles. But I wrote this down. I have a lot of notes, but the interesting thing about travel is that the specific problem almost doesn't matter. Lost passport, missed train, canceled flight, whatever it is. The problem isn't necessarily the problem. The process of solving it is usually the same every single time. And so I wanted to kind of talk about some general principles with resourcefulness and that will help you solve problems when you encounter them. And they can be any kind of problems. If you follow these steps, I think it'll help you solve that problem um, without having to know exactly how to solve the problem in advance, if that makes sense. So I wanted to share with you guys, and I've done a few, like, I don't know if the video that I'm going to share is going to work. I did a couple practice live streams, just private ones that I could watch and rewatch. And sometimes this worked and sometimes it didn't. I don't know. I don't know the rhyme or reason to that, but I'm going to try to share my screen and I have it muted. So you should still hear it. You'll have to let me know in the comments after I share if you could actually see the video and all of that so that I know. And if not, then I'll just have to explain to you like what it was. But this is, let me give you a little bit of a backstory with this. This is when I was in the Himalayas on my round the world trip this last fall. The reason why I was there is because everything was spur of the moment. I was planning everything on the go. So I had arrived in Delhi. I flew from Uzbekistan to Delhi. And my plan was just to kind of see, like I just had bought a 5-year visa for India. So I wanted to at least get that started. And so I landed in Delhi. I'd been to India before, the year before in December, and it was beautiful. So I arrived in September, and I checked the weather in advance, but it said it was like supposed to be like 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, I'm like, that should be okay. I get there. I'm like, oh my gosh, it is so hot here. Like, I can't stay. It was like 11 o'clock at night. It was like walking into the hottest sauna I had ever been in. I was like, okay, I can't do this. I'm going to have to just move on like immediately. So I got in my hotel shuttle and I was going to my hotel, and there was another traveler, and he was just like, oh, hey, like, imagine you're just here for the night because, you're by the hotel, by the airport. And I was like, no, I've got like 2 days here. And then I don't know where I'm going because I am just planning as I go. And so then he was like, well, you should come up to Leh Ladakh. It's up in the Himalayas. It's beautiful. They're doing like a festival right now. It's supposed to be really amazing. If you want to, I'm going to be going on like a 3-day trek when I get up there after I do the festival. And I'm like, he goes, by the way, it's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So I was like, okay, I should look at this as an option. So I looked up flights for like $50. I was like, okay, I'm just going to go there. So that kind of explains to you why I was even in this area. It was in the Himalayas. We were at like 10,000 feet elevation. I didn't know a lot about this area before I went, but it seemed cool. And they were having this cool festival. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go. So anyway, that's why I was there. And while I was there, some things happened. And this video clip I'm going to show you it'll explain itself. And like I said, please let me know if it doesn't work, because then I can just tell you. It's cool to see. So I would like you to see it, but let's see. Let's share screen. All right, here's the moment of truth. We're going to find out. Okay, we're going to do this one. Share. Okay, so I'm going to play. I think I have to go like.
I'm in a taxi right now heading towards the airport in Leh. There has been a lot of different things going on here since I've been here. There's been a bunch of protests, and they've like literally shut down the city. You couldn't be out in larger groups of four. And so we basically have to stay at the guest house the last kind of 3 days. Well, two full days. And I changed my flight, changed all my plans to leave earlier, heading to Delhi. And anyway, it's pretty crazy. They haven't had protests like this ever, really. Like, I think the last time protest they've ever had here was like 1989. So we picked a good time. We had to change all of our plans. But anyway, it's all good. I've learned a lot in this process. And one of them is that you stay attuned to what's going on when you're in an area that has things like this that happen. And you make plans to leave, which is what we did yesterday. And as soon as we found out about the situation, we immediately made flight plans. I made mine for today. My friend made them for the next day. So, and I'm also leaving to the airport earlier than I normally would have left because more protests are expected to start today. And so I need to get there before the roads or anything is shut down. So on my way, cross my fingers that everything works out all right and I can get on this flight and just make my way back to Delhi. But yeah, it's been a very, very cool experience, very interesting. Learned a lot, and I'm glad it came. Anyway, report.
Okay, could you guys see that video? Voice, no video from me. Okay. So you could hear it, you just couldn't see it. Could anybody see the video? This is so annoying. Okay. So no. Okay, let me just tell you about it. That sucks. Anyway, so and I'm not even at my home like right now. I'm like kind of on the road. So anyway, um same here, blank screen but audio. Okay, well at least you could hear it. So you couldn't see it. That's unfortunate because it was cool. I had cool video. So showed me going through the streets of I was in a cab and I was going through the streets of Leh Ladakh and I was on my way to the airport. So let me just give you a little bit of what happened. When I arrived in Leh Ladakh, I discovered that this area is like it's kind of a contested area. As far as I understand, I don't know all the politics about it, but anyway, they're having this big festival. It was totally amazing. When I got there, I hung out with my friend. We were both staying at the same inn, and the place we were staying was really cool because like I had my room, he had his room over here, and we like shared a balcony in between, so we could like just hang out on the balcony like when we weren't out exploring. So it was really cool. Anyway, excuse me. So the first day we went to the festival, I'll just kind of sum up this story really fast, just so you have a little bit of information of what was going on. Festival was amazing. There was like this huge, like the downtown area had this huge stage set up. They had like performances all the time. So that first day I was there, we went to performance. We had to hiked up to a little monastery temple thing at the top of the mountains where we were. And then we went to like, I think like a polo match or something. I don't know. It was amazing. We went to all these different things. And so the next day was the last day of the festival. And we had all these plans to do stuff that day. So when we woke up that day, we were trying to get a cab and our in guy was like, oh, it's my anyway. I don't know. I don't know what he knew, but basically it took us a while to get the cab. So when we got to the cab and they drove us to the place where there was supposed to be this really cool mask dance that we wanted to go to, um, they were just like, yeah, like it's canceled. And I'm like, what do you mean it's canceled? Like this was like the one of the top things for the festival. It was supposed to be like the biggest thing. Okay, this is weird. So like that was just the guy at the gate. So we're like, hey, just take us in, cab driver, and will you please wait for us? And because we're gonna have you take us someplace else. But we want to walk in and like find out what's going on. Maybe they just delayed it or something. So we go in, they tell us, nope, it's canceled, completely canceled. We're like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. Like, this is one of the coolest things that we wanted to see. So, like, okay, well, I guess they canceled it. I don't really know why. So we told the cab driver, just drive us into town. We'll just go in and get something to eat. Or my friend needed to get his SIM card that I had gotten the day before, luckily. Anyway, so we get into town and like it's dead. There's like hardly anybody around, but they are tearing down all of that stage. They're tearing down all the festival stuff, all of the shops completely. Like, you know, those garage doors that come down to like close off shops, all closed. We're like, what is going on? The only thing that was open was like the pharmacy. So we're like, all right, let's pop in there and like maybe we can get some stuff that we need for the trek. Like I needed to get some things. So for the high altitude and stuff. Anyway, so we just walked back up to our place and we asked the guy, he's like, "Oh yeah, there was some like little things that went on earlier or something. So don't worry. Um, don't worry, the everything will be open by tonight." And so we go back down there in the evening. It was still daylight, but we go back down there and everything was still closed, completely closed. And we're like, all right, so now we have no place to get anything to eat. Hopefully, our guy will feed us because he would provide breakfast for us every morning, but he didn't provide anything else, of course, because that wasn't included in the thing. So we just asked him, we're like, okay, so we got back. Hey, can you just cook us something for dinner? Because we haven't eaten since this morning. And he's like, yeah. So we ate. The power went out. It was just all so crazy. So the next morning we had plans to take like a tour of the around the area to some of the different monasteries. And so we were going to arrange for a driver. So we get down to go for breakfast and the guy was like, no, you can't go anywhere today. And we're like, okay, like what's going on? He was like, well, there was like last night, I guess in the town, there was some major protests going on. And then he gave us some numbers. I can't remember the details, but a whole bunch of people were injured and a bunch of people were killed and they brought in the military. I'm like, the place that we were just like last night? Like, oh my gosh. Okay, so my friend and I, we looked at each other and we're like, we're getting flights. And so we went up to the balcony and we just started arranging our flights. And it was really interesting because when we were talking when we were eating our breakfast, there was another traveler who had just gotten there from the Czech Republic. He was supposed to go on this long like trek, like he was starting from there, but he was going off into someplace else. He's paid tons of money. He was like, I don't want to cancel. I don't want to leave. And my friend and I were like, we're not staying here. I mean, there's no reason. My friend had told me earlier that when he was in Egypt at the start of the pandemic, he actually got stuck in Egypt for like 6 weeks because he couldn't get out. Because once things start happening, there's lots of dominoes that can happen and you can get stuck places. So anyway, so he so while we were talking, there was another traveler, like a couple travelers there that were from southern India. And they started giving us their advice, like, oh, I don't think you should be so hasty. Just wait it out. Everything will be fine. Things like this never happen here, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I'm sharing all of those details because I think all of this kind of helps, like, kind of help you in the moment to kind of plant seeds. A lot of this is to plant seeds for yourself. Like if you're ever in a weird situation, like you kind of like maybe rely on like other people's stories to like help you through your experience. So of course I was relying on my friend's experience because he'd been stuck in Egypt and not been able to get out. I've been in different situations before. And plus my common sense just tells me if there's some kind of thing going on at a place, like I don't want to be in that place. I want to move on from the place. And so that's just what we did. So we went to the balcony. We arranged for flights. I was able to get a flight out. And I was looking for that day. He was like, well, flights are going to be ridiculous. And I think that might be, but I think tomorrow's fine. So I booked a flight for the next morning. So we just stayed on the balcony the whole day. We couldn't leave because I forgot to mention that. They also mentioned, I think in the video, you kind of heard it, but our inn manager let us know that they had something called a curfew. Now, where I come from, curfew refers to like nighttime that you can't be out. But then curfew meant no more than 4 people could be on the streets at the same time. And so that didn't mean like it just meant like if my friend and I went out and there was 3 other people on the street and we weren't even with them, it didn't matter. We could all be arrested. And so we couldn't leave the place. We had to just stay where we were. So we're like, oh my gosh. So we just hung out on the balcony the whole day, listened to music with the Czech guy, guy from Czech, and we had a good time together, but we were making our plans to leave. I got a flight out for the next morning. Anyway, so I get my flight out, and then the cab story was what you just heard. Basically, what happened is the next morning I got my breakfast and I was arranging to leave because I needed to leave to the airport by I think it was like 10:30. I got the breakfast and went up and it was like 9 o'clock or something when I was packing my bags. I get a knock at the door and it's the inn manager. He was like, the protests are starting again. You need to get out of here now. The cab driver's on his way. I was like, before they close down the streets. I'm like, oh my gosh. All right. So I'm like throwing all my stuff in the bag and I'm just like, that's when I jumped in the cab. And unfortunately, you didn't see me talking, but you heard. So anyway, that is just to explain a situation that I found myself in, like that was just unusual, right? That's an unusual situation that you're not going to find yourself in very often, I would hope. But if you do find yourself in but when plans change, when something happens, like you need to, there's some steps to follow. So, first of all, what I was happy about is that we stayed calm. We didn't freak out. We didn't get like, oh my gosh, and go crazy, but we knew we needed to take action and we needed to take it soon before like maybe all the flights were gone. But anyway, and I've had other situations happen to me in other places. Um, I can share those later. Maybe I don't want to get too off the track here. The point is just share this story. And then I wanted to talk about principles to follow that will help you in whatever situation you find you're in. You might not, hopefully, you never find yourself in like really bad situations. But if you do, if you follow these principles, then you should be able to get yourself out of the situation. It should help you be more resourceful in the situation. But excuse me, this could also just be like literally just like smaller things, like, well, it's still a major thing, but losing your passport or having your phone die when you're out and about. I mean, there's all different kinds of things that can happen that help that you need to be resourceful about. Okay. So let's talk about the principles. Let's get into that, Amy. Okay. So, first of all, the first principle is stay calm. Okay. So, and then I'm just going to list them and then I'm going to talk about them each. So, stay calm, gather information, talk to people, use your backup resources, and stay flexible. So those are the principles, and I'm going to go through each one in specific. So stay calm. So obviously the main reason why you stay calm is because your brain works better when you're not freaking out. Now, I'm sure that like some of these things that I mentioned just now, like my experience plus my friend getting stuck in Egypt, all these things, they bring a lot of anxiety, right? Like, of course, it's difficult to stay calm when you're actually in the situation, let alone when you're just thinking about it. But you need to just like take some breaths and be like, okay, I need to just stay calm and I need to like move on. Once I can get myself calmed down, relax, then I can move on to the next step. And the next step is to gather information. And the gathering information can sometimes be a little challenging. I will tell you that because um, news sources, like you could get online really quick and be like, what's going on in the place I am? But you may not be able to find anything. Sometimes the media isn't as free in places. Maybe that's the best way to say it. So you may not have as much access to information that you could find online, right? Like if you're trying to find stories or whatever on it, you may have a difficult time finding in these kinds of situations. You may have a difficult time finding actual information. So if you can't, so like some of the different ideas, I would think, okay, so one of your best sources of information sometimes is just on the ground, right? It's talking to locals and finding out what's going on. And I would say talk to a variety of different types of locals and also talking to locals who don't have a vested interest in the resolution to your problem. Does that make sense? So I've been in two situations where the information that I was getting was from the place I was staying. Okay. So generally in places that are trying to develop their tourism, they know that they want you to stay. They want you to stay in the hotel. They want you to stay in the hostel. They don't want you to leave because then they've lost money or it gets a bad name for the place. So when things are happening, they kind of, well, just relax. Everything's fine. They may be, but those places also have a vested interest in you staying. So I would say, yes, get information from them, but then try to get information from other people and try to like put it all together and then assess in your own mind what you need to do, listening to your own gut. So and I say that because like I said, I've been in two situations where the information from the lodging wasn't wasn't as timely and as accurate and as helpful as it needed to be for me to make proper decisions. And I got my information from other sources. So anyway, that's just to kind of say that. And it's not to say I'm not trying to diss on any person by saying that. I'm just saying that like people don't want to lose their business and they don't want to have something affect them negatively. So that's sometimes why they will be like, oh, just everything's going to be fine, even though they don't know what it is. So, all right. So talk to people. That was our first one was gather information. Our second one was gather information, stay calm, gather information, talk to people. Like some of the suggestions I wrote down would be like airport staff. You know, if you're in the airport, you could talk to staff, you could talk to hotel staff, which we know, but like I'm saying, a variety of people so you can kind of piece all this stuff together. Taxi drivers, hostel travelers. So fellow travelers are also really great for getting information from. Shop owners, police, tour guides. Um, yeah, I wrote down other humans are one of the most powerful resources when you're traveling. And that is 100% the truth. Like, I have been so grateful for fellow travelers, plus just like people. Oftentimes, a lot of times it is the fellow travelers that you can get the most info from, because once again, they don't have any vested interest in your situation. However, I will say that the fellow traveler that I think I just touched my mic. Hopefully that didn't make a weird sound. Anyway, the fellow traveler that was like trying to help us be like, oh no, just relax, everything's fine. That was information, but we chose to say, no, we are going a different way. Yes, you're right. We shouldn't freak out. We should be calm, like he was suggesting. But him saying for us to just stay an extended of time, just wait for it to pan out, wasn't helpful information because he was actually leaving himself the next day. So he wasn't staying longer. So I didn't actually really appreciate that advice because he was giving me advice that he wasn't even following himself. He was leaving. So anyway, so take all of the advice, wrap it all up, and analyze it. So anyway, so tour guides, police, shop owners, hostel travelers, blah blah. We went through this list. Um, okay, so then I have in here use your backup basics. And what I mean by that is like, okay, so this could be all kinds of different scenarios. My scenario is a little bit different because whatever. But I one of the things I was grateful was that I already had my SIM card. I had access to use my phone. My friend didn't have his yet, so he didn't have the access. He only had the Wi-Fi from the inn. So having like extra, so I just wrote some different things down on here: extra debit card, small emergency cash, snacks, water, offline maps, printed documents, those kinds of things. So I will say that I was really glad. So when we found out that we were like there for the day, we couldn't leave to get any food, we couldn't leave to get anything. And now we're at the mercy of the inn. He's going to feed us breakfast and dinner, but that's it. We're not going to get anything in between. So I had snacks. I had a bag of trail mix that I had purchased in Vienna like 2.5 weeks before, that I had just been like, I kind of do that when I travel. I kind of will like buy something and I'll kind of put it away like for a rainy day. Like if I don't need it, I won't use it, but I have it in case I'm desperate. And I do like doing that, even though it's extra weight to carry in the pack. I like having things with me just in case, because you never know. Like for me, I get really bad headaches. And so I never know, like, what happens if I get a really bad headache in the night and I don't have anything to eat so that I can take my medication? If I take medication without food, I'll be sick to my stomach. So anyway, that's one of the reasons why I always like to keep something on hand so that I have something just at spur of the moment. But in this case, it was really nice because I was able to pull out some of that trail mix and some other snacks that I had, and I shared it with the other travelers, and we ate that during the day. So that was really nice to have that. We also had my friend had water purification tablets. So because we couldn't go into town and buy fresh water, we were able to use some of the water. We didn't use it from the tap. Our inn had like a water like tank thing there that looked like it was safe, but we didn't know for sure where it came from. So we just would fill up our water bottles and then add in the purification tablets to that. So we had that. So we shared our resources. What was another thing? Anyway, so that's what we did in those moments. We were able to use the Wi-Fi. Also, when the Wi-Fi would go out, we were able to use my SIM card to be able to access information online to get our flights, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's why I suggest making sure that you have your backup basics. Having, like I mentioned before, like there's different things that could happen. Like what happens if you put your card into an ATM machine that eats the card? What are you going to do? So that's why I always have a backup debit card, just, for those kinds of reasons in a different place in my bag. Be flexible. That was our last point. And sometimes the solutions are not like, sometimes solutions aren't exactly like they're, sometimes to get from point A to point B, you have to go like this. Like you can't just go direct. So meaning like sometimes you have to think outside the box when you're in these kinds of situations, and you have to be creative in your solutions to the problems, if that makes sense. And so let's see. Yeah, anyway, so that's my point with staying flexible, being willing to say, okay, these were my travel plans. There's something happened that now I need to make different plans. And so be willing to say, okay, well, I can't do that anymore. I've got to do this over here now. Luckily, I was in the situation that I didn't have any future plans. So I was like really fortunate. I didn't have a bunch of stuff that now is dominoed and ruined. Like I didn't have anything planned. So I just bought my next flight and I just moved on to the next place. So in my situation, it was really fortunate. That's not the way most people travel. And I don't usually travel like that. It's very fun. I think I'm going to travel like that more often by just planning things as I go. But yeah. Anyway, so that's just like a one example. There's all different ways that plans can go awry. And I give you a very extreme example, I feel, because I don't feel like these kinds of things are going to be very common. However, like whenever something happens that alters your travel plans, it is a major thing for you. It is a big deal at the moment because you have pictured in your mind of how you want this trip to go and you've paid all this money or whatever. And all of a sudden there's a problem that you have to solve and it could divert your plans. But anyway, I just wanted to mention again, I'm going to go through the list so that in case you didn't catch it the first time, stay calm, gather information from a variety of sources, talk to a bunch of different kinds of people, especially those who don't have a vested interest in the outcome of what you choose. Use your backup resources if you need to, and stay flexible. Um, anyway, so that was kind of anyway, that's kind of what I had planned. I actually wanted to talk to you guys too and get some comments since I have 6 people in my chat. So in my live. So I'm very excited about that. So let's talk. I wanted to ask you, I wrote down some questions. Let me see on this other paper. Okay, so does anybody like, and if you don't have anything that you want to share, any examples, it's totally fine. Um, has anyone had a travel situation where things suddenly changed and you had to figure things out quickly? Do you have anything that you wanna share that I could, um, say on the screen? You can just drop it into the chat. If not, then oh, good, okay. Wow, were you always such a calm traveler, or did you acquire the confidence along the way? I wanna say I've acquired the confidence along the way, and a lot of it has come from experience and also listening to other travelers and planting the seeds. Okay. So I really try to do that in my own life. I try to look at other people's examples, what they've done, and I try to be like, hey, plant it. You may need that information later on. I'll tell you about the very first flight that I've ever had canceled. And I was really freaked out. So this was a situation. I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I was on this big like Christmas market like trip. And I was just going all over the place because I had what did I have? I had a Euro pass, and so I could just go anywhere. And so I was buying the little flights in between that were cheap, so then I could just use the trains and I could mix it up with the flights and the trains. So anyway, it was my first Christmas market trip, I think. Anyway, so I was in Edinburgh, and it was I want to say it was the 12th of December. Okay, I'm telling you that date because it's very important because my flight back to the United States was on the 14th of December at 10 o'clock in the morning from Paris. Okay. So this was 12 o'clock at night. Well, 12 o'clock, no, December 12th, 6 p.m. I was at the airport in Edinburgh and I was supposed to be flying to Paris. I get there, I'm in the lounge because I have lounge access with my credit card, just relaxing. And all of a sudden I noticed like my flight's been delayed. I knew that. Then all of a sudden I see this big red thing that says it's been canceled. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? It's 6 o'clock at night on the 12th. I have to be to Paris sometime tomorrow because my flight leaves out on the 14th at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I was just like, I'd never had a canceled flight in my entire life. I had no idea what to do. So I reached out to a friend at home who's a big traveler. I'm the big traveler now, but whatever, he was the big traveler for me at the time. And so I reached out to him and I was just like, John, like, what do I do? Like, I was texting him. I was desperately trying to call him. Unfortunately, like, you guys, it was like the perfect storm. And this is why I say, like, there's certain things that you should always do, right? Because I learned them the hard way. So my phone, I had been out for the day. So my phone was like almost dead. Okay. I'd also had my battery pack, my little charger. I had it in my bag, but I had just like a nylon sack that my charger was in, and it was super cold. And I didn't bother to even think about like, oh, and maybe it's going to damage the battery pack by being so cold. Oh, it did. It killed it. So I had no battery pack. Like there was no way to charge. I had no backup power. Keep in mind that when you're in an airport, there's a lot of people in your situation. They were canceling flights all over their place because of the weather, because it was too icy to leave. That's why the flight was canceled. So like everybody's affected. And so all these people are at the airport and there's hardly any places to charge your phone. I couldn't find any place to charge. My phone's almost dead. I didn't have a local SIM. I just had my SIM from home. So I can't even like call. I was flying on a budget airline, so they won't help you with the desk. I think it was EasyJet. It was a freaking joke. Like they wouldn't help you. They wouldn't talk to you. You're like, what am I supposed to do? I don't even know. I've never been in this situation. And so I was just like frantic. They're like, you have to call the number. And I was like, I don't have a way to call the number because I don't have a local SIM. I don't have a way to call. Anyway, so my friend was like, okay, like they gave me some tips of what to do. I end up trying to think some sweet people in the lounge because I went back to the lounge after I tried to talk to people. I went back to the lounge to see if I could plug in there. They were closing, and some sweet people were trying to help me. Like he's like, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can help you find a place to buy a sim here. We went into the local like shop, and they didn't have anything, and I was like, all right, that's fine. So anyway, I ended up like just kind of taking matters into my own hands because as far as I understood, like yeah, they don't rebook you, nothing. You're just on your own at one's budget. So anyway, so what I did is I just like was able to get on booking.com and I booked a hotel because I thought I'll just get something close. Because I had been staying at a hostel in town that was like $7 a night or something awesome. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to go all the way in town because what I did is I found a flight. And my strategy was this. I was like, okay, if this is weather related and then the first flight of the day will always have priority. That's what I was thinking. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was thinking. So I'm going to get on the first flight of the day because what I'd already been thinking was like, okay, so I have this Euro pass. Like I could literally, like if I can't get out of Edinburgh, can I just get on the train right now and go down to London and then take the channel across to Paris? I'm like, I could do that. People in the lounge were like, no, like, have you looked? Like channel's completely booked. You can't take that across. And I'm like, oh, geez. Okay, so that's not going to work. I considered just taking the train anyway and just going to London and seeing if I could fly from London. Apparently there was issues with London as well. So anyway, so what I end up doing is I end up finding a flight because everything was super expensive. I found a flight on Ryanair at 5 o'clock in the morning. All of this by the time I'm figuring all this out was like, cause they kept on delaying the flight. So this is like 11 o'clock at night now that I'm trying to get something for the next morning. So I found a flight on my own. Ryanair was like $50. I was like, I booked it. And it wasn't to Paris. It was to Marseille, France. And I knew if I need to get to mainland Europe because once I get to Europe, then I can have the trains and then it'll get me to Paris so I can make that flight. So I got to booked a flight for Marseille. First flight of the day, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, but now it's like, 11:30 at night. Burger King is like kicking me out because they let me use their charging thing right there. So I could just make all these arrangements with the dead phone. Anyway, the airport's closing, so I need to leave. So I booked the hotel. Booking this is all like I've learned so much from this particular experience. So that's helped me in the future. But anyway, so I'm booking this hotel and it says it's an airport hotel, right? Well, I book it and it's non-refundable. It was like $180. I was like, I've never paid for this, but apparently I'm going to be reimbursed. And plus I have travel insurance. So I was like, it's fine. I'll just get an airport hotel. I'll be right here. I'm going to get back to the airport like really easy at 5 a.m. for the 5 a.m. flight. I booked the thing as soon as I pressed book. That's fine. I don't care. It's non-refundable. It came up with this thing. What did it say? Oh, it goes, oh, to get here, it's like a 60 euro. It's like 60 pounds, which for my money translation would be like 100, like, I don't know what it was at the time. Let's say it's double. So let's say it's $120 to get to this airport hotel. I'm like, this isn't by the freaking airport. Like, what do they mean this is by the airport? So I just booked a hotel that was like super far away. It wasn't by the airport at all. So I was like, well, that just sucks. So anyway, I I just had to be like, well, then forget it. I'll just have to deal with that later. I can't go to that hotel. That's pointless. I can't now pay $120 to get there and far away. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to book another night in the hostel. It was like $7 a night or something. It was great hostel. I'll just do that. And then I'll take the bus in and then I'll just forget it. I just need to get there because I need to charge all my devices. The airport's closing. At least I could take a shower, get myself situated, and then leave within a couple hours. I have to come back to the airport anyway. So, so I did that. I booked the hostel, went down, got on the bus, and this sweet girl was also going to the hostel because she mentioned she was asking the bus driver about the hostel. I was like, "Don't worry about it. I'm going to the same place. I'll show you where it is." So we got to the hostel and she was so cute. She like stayed up with me the whole like those few hours that I needed so that I wouldn't fall asleep. And she was so cute. She sat with me in the lounge and just chatted with me so that I would stay awake. So so sweet. I went and showered. I had to get all my stuff charged and then get back to the airport. And I just kept on hoping, please, 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 please leave. This flight needs to go in the morning because if it doesn't, I'm gonna be in big trouble. I didn't know how I was getting back. I didn't know how I was getting to Paris. I come to find out later on, I could have gotten rerouted through because my flight was with Delta to the back of the states, and I could have just called up and said, "Listen, I'm stuck in Edinburgh. Can you please just reroute me out of Edinburgh or out of London?" And they could have done that, but I didn't know that at the time. So anyway, I got to the airport. I was getting on the plane. I was like, "Yes!" And then it flew, and I was just like, I was so grateful. I got to Marseille, and once I got to Marseille, there was like literally nobody to ask any questions to. I don't speak French. I was trying to figure everything out. I had to find the bus that would take me to the bus station. Um, yeah, I had to take a bus to a just random stop, and then I had to get off there because it was like, it was the train station, and then I couldn't book the train in advance, and, with Eurail, I could travel for free on with the pass, but I had to book the ticket, and I had to do that at the desk. So, like, book the seat or whatever, so I finally get to the train station, and I was so grateful. The bus, like, I finally found the bus. I got to the bus, and this lady that was on the bus helped me figure out how to get off the stop I needed, and she was so sweet. Anyway, wonderful people along the way on this journey. Like, I was so frantic and so freaking out, but the people are the ones that helped me, right? So, and once again, this solidifies what I was talking about before. The people on the locals or travelers or just whatever, they're the ones that are probably be your best resource when you're when you're in a jam. So, yeah, so anyway, I got to the train station. I got there, woohoo! But the train office, ticket office isn't open yet, so I had to wait. I'm standing because I'm gonna be first in line because I knew there's probably limited seats. I get up there and I bought the last seat for that train. So it was a 3-hour train. I mean, like I said, I got the last seat. I didn't have to pay for the ticket. I just had to buy the seat. So anyway, as a 3-hour train ride from Marseille to Paris, I got in, and then I had to take my subway pass to get me to the airport because that's where I was staying was by the airport. I already had a place arranged in advance, and, and so I got to that place, and I considered, like, going into Paris and just enjoying the evening in Paris. I was like, "No, I'm not leaving this place. I'm staying right where I am. I'm so tired." I just asked around, like, I think I asked the guy that I was staying at his Airbnb, I was like, "Where can I eat something in this little town? What do you recommend?" He's like, "Yeah, there's a spot around the corner." Because I'm like, "I'm not going anywhere. I don't want to take any chances of missing this flight. I worked so hard to get to this area." So anyway, I couldn't have been more happier to be on that flight back to the States after all of that. But it taught me so much about just like the importance of networking with other travelers and with locals. It really does make a huge difference when you are in a bind. Um, and trying to stay as calm as possible. I was not calm. I was freaking out because I knew that I had to get to Paris by a certain day. I had that deadline and I just was like, I was really freaking out. So, one of the things that taught me is like not booking, like if I'm going to be in Europe, for example, and it's wintertime, I'm not getting, and I had flying out of mainland Europe. I'm not leaving mainland Europe unless there's a way to get back. I'm not leaving that area. I wanna be on the continent because I can always take a train or a bus or something, but if I'm in the UK and I need to get back over here, there's a chance I'm not getting there. So, anyway, so yes, I have not always been calm. It's been a matter of, like, just experience and then packing away that information. Okay, that was an experience. What did you learn from it? How are you going to be better next time? And just going that way. And that's why, and then also, like I said, just like listening to other people's experiences. So maybe, hopefully, some of the things I've shared will help you in the future for your own travels. I can give another story. I mean, I have so many stories, but I could give another one. This one I actually think is kind of cool, just because I actually relied on my own background knowledge of just life stuff in order to help myself in that situation. So what happened is it was last February. I had just arrived. I was in Egypt. I was in Cairo and I flew to Luxor. So when I arrived in Luxor, like for some reason, a lot of the flights in Egypt, I don't know if this is always all year long or if it's just whatever it is. But they were like, every place you landed was like 2 o'clock in the morning, you would arrive. So I arranged for my transportation from wherever I was staying. I was staying at hostels and they offered airport pickup. So I took advantage of that. So, excuse me, let me grab a drink. So in that particular situation, I arrived, it's 2 o'clock in the morning in Luxor. I'd already been in Cairo. I was already familiar with like the Egyptian way of doing things. Because every place is different, right? So I get there. We're driving into the hostel in Luxor. And of course, hostels, I love hostels because I like staying in the more local areas. And it's very local. We pull up, it's just like very, very gritty, very, very local Luxor. So anyway, arrived 2 o'clock in the morning. The guy was really nice. He was like explaining everything. And then he's like, "So you booked a dorm room," and he goes, "And and because of that, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't want to wake up the other guests. So I'm going to give you a private room and a private bathroom for tonight." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so nice. Thank you." I'm like, "Wow, that's really great." He's like, "But just so you know, there's no water right now." I'm like, "What do you mean there's no water?" Like, he made it sound like, and this is what I'm saying with being careful with getting information from where you're staying because it's not always going to be accurate, okay? So he made it sound like it was just a temporary problem, like in the building, and everything would be fine. Well, he didn't make it sound. He literally said that. He was like, "Everything will be fine. No problems. It's 2 o'clock in the morning right now. The water will be fine. The 6 o'clock in the morning, you'll have water, no problem." So I was like, okay. So I go into my room. I had to actually do a little bit of work. It was ridiculous. I was working so much right then, and I was trying to get a few things finished. And so I think it was 3:30 in the morning before I finally went to sleep. And I was like, okay, I want to wake up. I'm going to set my alarm actually because I want to wake up at 7 because I want to take a shower before like maybe there's no hot water left in the building. Because if it's been out, then maybe like I want to catch it first. So I woke up at 7, no water. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go back to bed. So I went back to sleep. 9 o'clock, I woke up still groggy, so exhausted. I was so tired. Anyway, still no water. And this was supposedly supposed to be back on at 6 a.m. So I'm like, okay, so what's going on? So I go out, there's a new guy out there, and I'm just like, hey, so what's the situation with the water? And he's like, oh no, don't worry, ma'am. Like everything will be fine, like within an hour or two. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. Like that's I was told it was supposed to be on at 6 o'clock in the morning. So what's going on with this water? Like, just tell me the truth. Because if you guys aren't going to have water in this building, I want to make other plans. I want to move to a different accommodations. And he's just like, oh no, blah, 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 all the stuff, right? All the stuff that you hear when someone wants you to not leave an establishment or something. So it was very irritating. There's people sitting there who were travelers who were like, thinking that I was being rude to the guy. I was like, I'm not being rude. I just want to get to the bottom of this. I just want someone to tell me the truth of what's going on. I just barely arrived. I just want to know because I don't want to stay in a building where there's no water. And she's like, well, it's out in the whole town. I'm like, right, sure, whatever. So I was like, you know what? I need to get some more information. So I left. This is my gather information stage, right? I left and I was like, I'm going to go to a nice hotel that's like it was down the road. I just kind of looked on my phone, found that there was like a real hotel like nearby. So I just walked down a little bit of ways away into more touristy business area, went into this nice hotel, and I just went up to the desk and I'm like, can I ask you a question? Do you guys have water in your hotel? And he was like, no. He's like, there's a water main break in the city and the city has no water. And I'm like, okay, so it is true what they told me. All right. Gather the information. I'm like, all right. So I just asked him like, "Okay, so I have a question. What are your plans to take care of your guests?" Because I figured that a hotel that was more expensive than a hostel is gonna have maybe a better plan because those people are definitely paying more money than I was. My $6 a night was ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, so he goes, I'm like, "Okay, so for example, how are you going to flush toilets?" Because that was something I was really curious about. Like, that is an issue, right? Especially it was gonna be an issue for me at the hostel because, I mean, that's gonna get really bad really fast if there's no way to flush the toilet and everybody's using the same toilet. I was just like, "No." So I asked him, like, "How are you planning on flushing the toilets?" And he goes, "Probably bottled water." And I'm like, immediately panic mode in my mind. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Okay, so if that is their plan in this hotel, imagine if that's everyone's plan. We are 13-hour drive from Cairo, the next biggest city, 13 hours by road. We are out in the middle of the desert. There's no water to flush toilets, so we're gonna use drinking water from the we're gonna run out of drinking water. Like, this town could be in big trouble, like, really fast, because I actually, when I grew up, my grandparents lived in a very, very remote area, and, sometimes their toilets didn't flush, and so we'd have to go out to the irrigation ditch and get a bucket of a 5-gallon bucket of water. I remember I was a little tiny kid, 5-gallon bucket of water, we'd have to bring that in, my parents would bring that in, and that's what we'd use to flush the toilet, because when you think about a toilet, it has a huge tank on it. That tank, all of that water is usually used to flush the toilet. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you know how many bottles of water you're gonna have to use to flush the toilet one time? Like, this place is gonna run out of water, like, really fast if that is the plan for this city, even if it's just the plan for the hotels, the water's gonna be gone." So I'm like, "Oh my gosh," and then we're kind of in a tough spot because it was Ramadan. Ramadan had just started. That meant that there weren't a lot of flights leaving. There was not a lot of ways to get out of this place. And so I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. So I left. Thank you so much for the information, right? Thank you. So I left and immediately I was like, hey, I got to have 3 big, large bottles of water with me at all time. When I drink one, I buy another one. I will have 3 liters of water with me at all time. I think those a big liter. Yeah, so that's what I did. I made sure, and then I talked to my and then I had the thought, I'm like, "Wait a second, you know what? There is a very expensive hotel on the other side of town. It's a five-star hotel, it's right on the Nile." I was like, "I bet you they have a different setup. Like, I bet you they're not just relying on bottled water to flush toilets. They probably have their own water. Probably have their own water network that's separate from the city." So, sure enough, they did. So what I did is I just looked, I'm like, "Can I just move to that hotel?" Um, the prices were amazing. They were like $50 a night for a five-star hotel. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna splurge. This is a time to splurge. I wanted to spend one more night in this place because there was a tour I was going on from the next morning. And so I spent another night. So I had 2 nights at this place. I arranged yeah. So then I went on the tour. I came back and I grabbed my stuff and I went to the expensive $50 a night hotel, but the five-star hotel. And yes, indeed. As soon as I walked with the desk, I'm like, you do have your own, you do have water working here, right? And he was like, of course, we have our own water system. I'm like, that's what I thought. So I stayed there at night and then I left. But my point in saying that is that I was able to use my own knowledge of like growing up in a desert, plus also and knowing how fast water can disappear. And also the experience when I had when I was a child of knowing exactly how much water it does take to flush a toilet. A little bottle of water is not going to help you do anything. You're going to blow through a lot of those very quick. So anyway, my point in saying this is that I did follow those principles without even realizing it. I stayed calm. I gathered information. And then I talked to a variety of people because the information I first got from the first guy, I knew it was just like, oh, come on, please just tell me the truth. Just don't lie to me. Just tell me what's going on. And at the end of the day, they didn't know really what was going on. They have no way to know how long the water was going to be out. So anyway, and then I relied on my own ingenuity, my own, okay, I got to solve this problem for myself. The water's going to disappear possibly here. So let's make sure that you're taken care of with your own water needs. And so that is what I did. Um, Anyway, and then I moved places, and then I was leaving anyway, so then when I flew out, everything was fine, but, yeah, so that gives you a couple more stories. I don't need to just be this all me just talking about these crazy stories. I do think that it's helpful, like I said, to have these conversations. Um, did you guys have anything else you wanted to share? I need to be better about, like, asking questions so I can get some better engagement, but some of this, I just wanted to share, examples and stories. Um Anyway, do you guys have any questions, or anything that you wanna share that you can share that I can repeat on the screen? I would be happy to do that. Anyway, I'll just wait a second. I don't like to there to be silence, but I also need to give you guys a chance. I could listen to your adventures all day. Oh, Wendy, you're so sweet. Thank you. Yeah. I actually could probably share another example, and it's not even my example. Okay. It's happened recently. So, and I think this story is kind of interesting because I think that it's something for us to plant in our minds also. Okay. So, with all the stuff that's been going on in the Middle East, I'm sure everybody's aware of all that stuff. And so I have a lot of travel friends, people that I just either follow, that I've been following for years, and I've talked to them like tons through comments and stuff, but I've never actually met them in person. And then also real people that I know from real life. So I had 3 friends actually I've only had one cancel flight ever, nothing adventurous. Um, oh my gosh. Yeah, anyway, so I have 3 people that I know that are in the Middle East right now. Maybe a good lesson is okay, Wendy, when maybe a good lesson is that no matter how prepared I try to be, at some point I just need to plan the trips and enjoy the process. That is 100% the case, okay? So I actually wrote something down for that. Let me see where I wrote it because it okay, this is what it is. Resourceful travelers don't avoid problems. They just know how to navigate them. That's the key. You're there things are always gonna come up when you travel. It's not gonna stop me from traveling. I actually find that the crazier the adventure, I think it's a better story, right? I think it's kinda cool. Oh my gosh, I fled the Himalayas when civil unrest. I mean, like, it's kinda cool. But, I mean, I'm not gonna place myself in danger just to have a cool story, but what my point is that we can't always avoid that. So I love that what you said. Maybe a good lesson is that no matter how prepared I try to be, at some point, I just need to plan the trips and enjoy the process. 100%, honestly, you can't freak out about all these things. I think if you just remember those principles that I mentioned, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to be resourceful on the road and you're going to be able to figure things out. And it might be a usually it's a completely different um, way of solving the problem than you could ever imagine because you're going to be resourceful and you're going to apply knowledge and whatever you need to in the moment to solve the problem. Okay. So, anyway, so let me get back to the Middle East. I think this is a cool story that it's also something to kind of keep in our minds. So, 3 people I know are in the Middle East. One friend lives in Saudi Arabia. Her husband is an expat there, so she lives there, really close to Bahrain. Anyway, another friend I have, she's been traveling full time for like a year and a half, and she's in Jordan. I have another person that I know. She's not somebody I actually know in real life, but I've been following her for years, and she's a huge inspiration as far as like resourcefulness. But she was in Kuwait. So her situation was is that she was leading a group trip of fellow travelers who had signed up for her group trip, and they were leaving Saudi Arabia and they were flying to Kuwait just to connect. They were going to stay overnight, and then they were going to fly out the next morning to fly onwards to wherever the next place was. When they landed in Kuwait, within 2 hours after they landed, that's when the Kuwait airport was bombed. Um, I don't know if you heard that was one of the things that happened during all this Middle East chaos that's been currently going on. So the airport's bombed, and they had just been there 2 hours before. So of course they felt extremely, extremely fortunate that it happened when it did and not when they were there, obviously. But now they're in the situation of like they're staying in this hotel and they're like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Like, our flight's supposed to leave tomorrow, but I doubt that it's probably gonna leave. Maybe they could still fly out. I don't know, but the airport's kind of not the whole thing's been destroyed, but part of it's been bombed. So anyway, so they and I will say that there has been a bit of a breakdown, just so everybody's aware, there's been a bit of a breakdown in the US government's like there's some things if you're American, there's some things that we sometimes rely on as travelers and I don't think we should necessarily rely on those things. One of them is the STEP program, and a lot of people have been talking about, oh, make sure you sign up for STEP. They're going to give you all the advanced warnings. They're going to give you all this stuff. In the past, it was a pretty good system, but right now, I don't feel like it's very good. Um, Maybe they're going to be able to figure things out and get it back up to going like it was before. But I just want to point out that if you know of anybody that is having the thought in their mind that they're safe and they don't need to worry and they don't need to stay alert because they're signed up for STEP and STEP is going to let them know. They can't have that mindset. I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with signing up with STEP. But if that is in your brain, like, oh, I've signed up with STEP, everything's fine unless I hear from them, please like remove that thought process because that didn't work for these travelers. The system broke down. Okay. Also, another thing that broke down for them is that, when you go to the State Department page, you can see where places are safe to travel. They checked that. And even while they were in Kuwait and the airport had been bombed and there's missiles flying overhead, still on the US State Department page, it said Kuwait green, safe to travel. So I would want you to be aware of the fact that those kinds of things that we've always assumed would be our ultimate source of information, they may not be accurate. So please just keep that in your mind. Like I said, this is an unusual situation, but it did affect these travelers. They thought they were safe. They're like, my friend who, my friend who's in Jordan actually had said, "Well, I haven't heard from my embassy and I haven't heard anything from STEP." I'm like, so she thought she was okay to stay in Jordan. I'm like, you may be okay. I don't know. But if you're relying on that as your reason to stay, you cannot because they are not letting anybody know anything. So, at this point. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I think that's very, very important because I think sometimes as travelers, we do put that in our brain like, oh, okay, well, everything must be fine because I haven't heard anything. Please don't think that way. You need to gather your information from a variety of sources. Anyway, so that's just a little tip that I'm going to use with my own travels and I just wanted to pass that on to you because it was information that I knew, right? So anyway, and that's not to diss on anything. That just means that there was a breakdown in a system. And so because of that, we have to just be better at being prepared. So, and that's probably across the board. I'm giving the US as an example, but there's probably other times when other governments haven't been up to date because they're humans that are running these things, right? So it's going to have error. There's going to be human error at times. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. But long story short, with these people, it was pretty amazing. So they didn't have any like advance warning. They weren't getting any updates. They weren't relying on help from the government, but the government certainly wasn't providing any kind of help in that way. So that's just what it was. So of course she's a this girl that I was following that's in Kuwait. She's a very expert traveler. She's been full-time traveling for 13 years. She's been to like 140 countries. She's been like all over. So she has a lot of travel experience that she can rely on from the past. Plus, she's put together these group trips. So she knows how to arrange transportation and all these kinds of things. So she used that ingenuity to get them out. She was able to actually she connected with another social media influencer that is Kuwaiti. So she connected with that person, and that person was able to give her like help in figuring out ground transportation that could get them out of Kuwait by land and then driving all the way back down into Saudi Arabia. Riyadh is where they were going, 8 hours across the Saudi desert to be able to fly out of that airport because that airport was you could fly out of that one. So anyway, they were able to do that all because they networked with locals and also networked through what was going on social media. They were at network with people who had help and had access to information. And so they did that. But what's really cool is so it showed her like her whole journey of getting down to Saudi. She was able to eventually fly out, get to Cairo, and then find a flight out of Cairo into Europe and then to Mexico, which is where she's living. So anyway, that was her story, and I think what's actually cool about this story too is that she just didn't help out herself and her group. She started having a lot of people message her like, "I'm in Kuwait too, I can't get out." So she set up a WhatsApp group for all the people that were contacting her from different places so that they could network with each other and help each other get out, help each other share transportation or, whatever it is because it's very expensive. I mean, like, you're arranging for a driver to drive you all the way from Kuwait across the border down 8 hours into Saudi. And now that guy has to drive all the way back without passengers. So you're going to be paying a lot of money for that. And I can't remember how much it was. I think that it was like $1,200 for that whole thing. And then they just split it up amongst the people who were there, which is actually a really good deal because I've heard a lot of people having to pay a lot of money to get out. Anyway, this is an extreme example, but I wanted to say like how cool the story is that she was able to get out by networking with other people. And then she used her position of having a lot of followers to be able to help other people network with each other so that they could get out. I just think it's really cool. Anyway, so it's just another example of how like just being resourceful, looking for people to talk to. I mean, isn't there that quote like what like Mr. Rogers would say back in the day that whenever there's problems, you always look for the helpers because there's always people that will help you. And that is honestly what I have found in all my travels, no matter if it's a serious problem I'm dealing with or just something little, I always find people who are willing to help. And so I love that about like, yes, we can be as resourceful and prepared and like the knowledge and everything, but we just go and we just say, you know what, everything's gonna be okay. I'm prepared. I'm prepared for anything that comes my way. I can rely on my own ingenuity, but also on the help from other people, kind people. I mean, it's amazing how many people are so amazing. Like everywhere you go, you're going to find people who are so willing to help you. It's beautiful, actually. I've just had that experience so many different times in my travel experiences. I would say every time I need help, I'm able to find someone who can help me. Um, no matter language differences or not. If I can't communicate with them verbally because we don't speak the same language, I just pull out the app and we're able to help each other that way. It's just amazing. So, wow, I've shared a lot of random stuff. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so okay, do we have any other comments or questions that I can just go off on? Please share anything that you have with me that if you've heard of things, or if you want any further information on a particular thing. Anyway, you guys are awesome. I just, yeah, anyway, these lives, what I wish more than anything is that lives could be like this giant like Zoom call where we could all just like jump in and like talk with each other verbally. Wouldn't that be so fun? I wish that's what it could be like. Anyway, let me look through and see if I have any other comments here. It's been it's just so fun to see all your guys' names. So we have, yeah, we have Karen from Canada. I'm just gonna go through here. We have Wendy, and Wendy, I think you said you were from Colorado. Yeah, Wendy's from Colorado. Karen from Canada. We have Carla from Missouri. Um, I think I don't know if I've missed anybody. Anyway, you guys are so great. If there's anybody else on the call, that hasn't written in and said hello, please feel free to do so. But do you guys have, okay, here's a question for you. And this is off of what we're talking about because we can just move on. But I wanted to know, do you guys have any particular travel topics that you would like to talk about in a live? This one was just kind of all over the place, but the general idea was on being resourceful, using your own ingenuity and local resources to help you through problems. When you travel, and just having, I think, really having the ultimate belief that you can solve whatever problem comes your way. Just know that you can, because you can. Either you personally can solve it or someone else can help you solve it. There's always a solution to figuring out whatever situation you find yourself in. So, that's kind of that's my ending message for that topic. But I would like to know from people who are still in this call, do you have anything in particular that you'd like to talk about in a future live, either next week or just in a future live in general? I would just love to know your guys' wants and your needs so that we can like address them. Carla, I made a small makeup palette in an Altoids box like you did. I'm really trying to make my toiletries smaller. There are not a lot of videos on this topic. Okay, so we could maybe even wouldn't that be kind of fun to make like some smaller things? Carla, did you? I love that. I love my little makeup kit, by the way. I love it. It has cut down so much space in my bag, and toiletries are such a big deal. It's funny because there's a lot of talk now that there isn't going to be as big of a problem of taking like larger things through security, but I don't care. Security actually isn't even the reason why I want to cut it down. I don't want to carry that crap around. I don't want to carry a year's worth of freaking eyeshadow in my bag when I can just have the stuff I need for 2 weeks. I just don't want to carry a lot of stuff anymore. Anyways, I'm so glad that that worked for you. Carla, did you try? I don't know if you saw the video that I did about the deodorant. Did you see that? Because that one was a really cool. I was excited about that, and I've used that from there on out. I've used those little tiny. So what it is basically is I made a deodorant in something like this size. It's awesome. And I bought these. Like you can use these containers that are just empty, like your lip gloss containers. What you do is when it's empty, you can just like kind of put it on I don't know how you get it all out. Maybe dig it out. I use a brand new one. Like I bought some containers, Amazon. Anyway, they're cool because I have like a million of those now. And so I can make these for other people. I can even make lip glosses, I guess. But anyway, so what you do is when it's empty, you get all of this stuff out, all the lip gloss, and then you twirl it down. So now the plunger's down at the bottom. I buy native deodorant. Okay, so you already buy the stuff that you like. But anyway, if you ever want to even get it smaller, you could buy the big native. Okay, to use that container when it's empty with the brand I normally use. Yeah. Okay, so I will tell you though that I used to use native as well. And if you look at native packaging, it looks so small, but it has a lot of wasted space at the bottom. So if you wanted to, you could buy the bigger native, and you could put it into something like this because you don't have as much space at the bottom that's wasted space. Just an idea, if that's helpful for you. Anyway, just a thought. Maybe for the length of your trips, that's totally adequate. The native one. But yeah, I used to use those too. But then I was kind of bugged when I looked and I saw how much it was wasted, just plastic that wasn't even the deodorant. I was like, what's going on here? So anyway, yeah. So it would be fun to think of some more ideas of ways that we can do those kinds of little DIY things to help with paring down our toiletries. Carla, there's another thing that you might want to think of too. Maybe you've already done this. If you use liquid shampoo and conditioner, what I would highly suggest doing is whatever size bottle you normally take with you, um, take that, fill it up, and start using it in your everyday. Okay. Just use it and pretend like you're traveling. Be like, okay, I'm on the road for my whatever length trip. I'm going to use this as if I'm on that trip right now. So then you see how long it takes you to use that bottle up. And I think you're gonna be surprised. Like, I used to take, just the bottles you can buy from the store, the smallest ones, like, they're about, like, they're whatever, you can get the empty ones from Walmart to put your shampoo and conditioner in. I never used those. I only ever used, like, a portion of that, and it was like, so I come back with all of this left over, and I'm like, "Why did I just haul that around with me? All of that stuff that I didn't need." So what I started doing is I just started, looking to see how much I would use, and then I would find bottles that were that size. Does that make sense? If I use liquid. So that I used to use liquid all the time. Now when I travel, I try to use the bar soap, the bar conditioner and bar shampoo, just because for me, I just find it to be so much easier, and then it's one less liquid. It's not like I said, it's not just the getting it through security that's a problem. Liquid weighs. And the more liquid you have in the bag, the heavier your bag is. And I carry it on my back, right? So I just am tired of heavy stuff. So that's why I've gone to the bar because of that reason. And like I said, I don't know what you use, but if you do use liquid, and even with the bar, I would still suggest find out exactly how much of the bar that you use and only take that portion. Like you don't need the whole giant bar of soap. You don't need that much for the amount of length that you go because honestly, I was gone for what 52 days, and there's no way I would have needed a giant bar. That's for a whole year at minimum of one of those bars. Like they last a long time. So anyway, and even the bottles of the stuff. So anyhow, trying to think of okay, does anybody else have any other comments about things that we could talk about? But yeah, Carla, thank you for what you said. I'm so glad that that was helpful for you. Um, yeah, it was so fun making that little makeup kit. I loved it. It was so fun last year. It was difficult to make the video, I will tell you, because I had my stupid GoPro over the top and I was filming on that, and GoPros always they always heat up and then they turn off. So I had to keep on constantly checking, okay, is it overheating? Do I need to stop and keep on going later? It's ridiculous. And then I had to piece it all together so you guys could see. Hope the lighting was this is not my obviously I'm not a professional at this. I'm just trying to make stuff to help you guys. But okay, so Carla, you said I switched to Kish bars for travel only. What kills me is hair gel. I also have long, naturally curly hair, so the products are very important, and I need a bit. I'm learning a lot. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, it's true. It's true. I'm trying to think. Okay, so one thing that I did do, I go through stages on what I take with me, and when I travel, sometimes I just get so dang lazy, and so and so I find that I don't do my hair as often sometimes, especially different places. If you could have seen the video of me in the Himalayas, you'd been like, "Wow, she looks great." So maybe it's you didn't see the video. But anyway, yeah, so I found, this is something that's super ghetto, but I just took just a snack size. No, it was a quart size. No, it was a snack size bag. It was a snack size Ziploc. It's been a long time since I did this. And I just took tons of my hair cream. Like I use what do I use? I use different stuff, but I think right now I'm using Cantu, the Cantu curl cream. I just took tons of that and I just put it inside that snack bag, and then I sealed it off, and then I doubled it up so that it wouldn't open up, and then I would just be able to open it up and use that in my hair. But I found that because it was just this random bag and it fit inside, I could do multiples of those. But when they were really strict on liquids, I never got questioned about that because it fit inside of the quart size bag with my other things, even though it was this giant amount. I don't even know. Maybe it was still okay. I have no idea how much was in there. I never even bothered. I just figured, well, I need this stuff. And then I would sometimes just find it when I was traveling. I know that Cantu products are sold in different places in Europe, so I was able to replace if I needed to, if it was a longer trip. But it is really hard. I agree. And it's hard too because you get used to a product and you like how it is in your hair. And so without having that with you, it's just a pain. I do agree. Um, I don't know if there's any big solution for that, but that is something I tried and it really worked. It was super messy. It's much better having it in a bottle or a jar, but I would just open it up and I just take like a scoop out with my hand. I'd seal it up and then I'd squish it in my hair. So, um, us curly hair girls always have high needs. Oh, you're so right. It's so true. But yeah, like I said, like on my around the world trip, I was so exhausted, you guys. I was so tired on that trip. I got sick at the beginning of the trip and it just was kind of like really hard for me to recover. And then I really pushed myself. Like I told you, I was just kind of going where the wind took me. And I don't really like extremely hot, humid places, which, hello, I don't know why I found myself in certain places at certain times of the year, but I did. So I my point in saying this is I was so tired and I just got so lazy. I got to the point I was like, I don't even care. I was just like squish some like water in my hair and try to make it curl, or I just like pull it into a bun or something. I was just like, whatever. But yeah, I was it was a struggle for that time because I said I was like 52 days, I think I was gone. But yeah, I really pushed myself to the limit on that trip. It was tough. Physically, I think it really took a toll. I was very, very, very tired when I got home. Um, very physically drained. But I like I said, I mean, I went from like I was sick in Uzbekistan. No, I was sick in Kazakhstan for like a week, really sick with respiratory. Like I got really sick on that trip. And so yeah, and I thought I eventually I had to move on. I couldn't stay there forever. I needed just when I felt as well as I could, I moved on to Uzbekistan, did a lot of travel in there, and then I flew from there to Delhi, and that's where I was like, "I can't stay here, it's too hot and humid." So I flew up to the Himalayas, which was a great idea, but yet not a super awesome idea considering that my lungs were still struggling, and I went to, like, 11,000 feet elevation. Hello? Like, that's not super great for your lungs. I was having a hard time breathing as it was, and then I put that task on my lungs. I was like, "How stupid." So then from there, I went to Singapore where it was so hot and so humid, like, I think it always is, but I went at the end of the rainy season or middle of the rainy season, whenever it was. It was really bad, and spent the next 3 weeks in Southeast Asia in the most hot, humid conditions I've ever experienced in my entire life. I was dripping daily. My electrolytes were probably just not even there, sweating out all my salt, daily. So yeah, it was tough. So I honestly, at that point, I was just like dragging. I wasn't ever able to be fully feeling really good until I got to Tokyo, until I got to Japan, because the weather cooled, there wasn't as much humidity, and I just was like, okay, now I can like kind of recoup a little bit. I was close to being home by that point, but anyway. So yeah, us curly girls do always have high needs. So wow, we could just chat about all kinds of things. Does anybody else have anything they want to chat about? I feel like I need, like I said before, I want to come up with a better system that we can just chat and I'm not just like, "Whoa," telling all these stories. But anyway, I guess I am the only one that has the voice on this thing. So please give me some more comments, you guys. Okay, so yeah, like I said, do you guys have any particular topics that you would like to talk about? We could do more like DIY type things. It'd actually be fun to make something live. That actually might be a good idea. I'm gonna jot that down on my notes. That maybe we could do something like that. That might be kind of fun. One idea I had, which I don't know if he would be up for it, but my dad um is really amazing DIY guy. I grew up with parents who were very DIY. My dad, especially, like I mentioned, my grandparents lived in a very rural place, and sometimes their toilet didn't work, all that kind of stuff like that. So my dad grew up in that place. And so he grew up at a time where it's like you didn't really have the opportunity to be able to like just go out and buy stuff, right? So you didn't either have the gas to get to the place or there just weren't any places to buy anything nearby. So you had to just make do with what you had. So if something broke on the farm, you figured out how to fix it with some baling wire or some duct tape or whatever it is that you needed to do. And that's just the world that he grew up in. So he always had those skills. And so as a child, oh my gosh, and even still today, my dad is like anything that he wants to do, he just does it himself. He doesn't he'd be like, "Okay, I need to make, I can't like recently." He's like, "Yeah, so I want to make these like handles for the dresser drawers that we have that we've just been using ropes on forever because they were like hand-me-down drawers or something." Anyway, he was like, "I want to buy some handles, but I can't really find any that would really work." So he made some. He got some steel, he like cut them out with his tools and he welded and he did all this stuff and he painted them. And now he has these really nice handles for his dresser drawers. This is my dad like all the time, like daily. This guy is doing stuff. So I guess my point is, if he was ever willing, it'd be kind of fun to have him on and talk about different DIY suggestions. Because in travel, like, let me just give you an example. When I was a kid, we would drive across the desert to go visit my grandparents and my other set of grandparents. And I can't even tell you how many times our vehicle would break down, or almost break down. And so he would know that there would be problems. So when we pull into some place, he would either have to fix it alongside the road or he'd have to fix it by going into a place. So, I mean, we're talking duct tape, water bottle containers. I mean, all kinds of things he would use to fix the vehicle so we could get all the way to our destination. It's incredible. So if he would ever be interested, if that's of any interest, it'd be kind of fun to have him on and just chat with him about some different DIY like ideas for travel. So anyway, I'm gonna write down like maybe make something live for toiletries. That might be kind of a fun idea. I don't know if that would work, but if we could come up with some kind of thing like when I made the makeup tin, maybe it'd be fun if I just like set up something and I just made it. You guys could ask questions as I was doing it. That'd be kind of fun. Um, does anybody else have any ideas? I had mentioned the thing with my dad. If he'd come on as a guest, that might be kind of cool. If he'd be willing to do that, and if that would even be of any interest or help for you guys, it'd be kind of just fun to see if he had like, okay, so let's say we have this scenario and something, whatever happens, what would you do if you were in that situation? How would you fix it with what you had? I don't know. Um, okay, so for those of you who are watching this, I should have mentioned before, but if you're watching this later on because you couldn't catch the live, drop comments in the comment section because I will respond to them. If you have anything in particular that you want to see in future lives, different topics, then please just let me know. In the meantime, it is now, yeah, it's kind of late. So I think I'm going to let you guys go. We've been on for about almost an hour and a half. And yeah, I just don't want to use up your whole day. But thank you so much for joining this travel club live, our very first one with this official name. And I'm just really glad that you're here. And I hope that we can build a really fun community on here where we can all just share with each other. And hopefully this didn't scare, like the topics didn't like freak anybody out. Hopefully it just gave you like planted some seeds. That's all this is meant for, is be like, hey, this person had this experience. Okay, plant the seed. I may need that information later on, or I may never need it. Or I could just be like, hey, this person was super resourceful. This is how they got out of their situation. I certainly can get out of mine. It'll just give you hope, right? So anyway, that's it. I think that I need to let you go. And then, like I said, hopefully everything was helpful. And I hope that you'll come back next week. I'm going to do this next week, same time. I'm not sure where I'll be, if I'll be at this location again, or if I'll be someplace else. We shall see. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me, you guys. I loved having you here, and I'm going to try to get better at this live thing so that I can have better engagement with everybody. But thank you, and I will see you next week. Bye.